Good afternoon. We are going to talk about the first part of malicious software or malware, and in the second part we will talk about how do we detect those malware using explainable AI. So, here is a brief outline. I am going to talk about why do we care about malware, then I am going to introduce you to some of the malware kind of families, and then I am going to briefly talk about malware attacks, not so much about from a software perspective how it affects the society and economy and the ecosystem. So, malware is a broad name and it is an abbreviation of malicious software, and it comes in various form. I am going to zoom in today into each of them, and they have different names, whether software trojan, virus, spyware, adware, worms, crimeware, rootkit, and although name may seem and sound different, they actually have some inherent commonality. It's basically a program. So, then there are two aspects that as we go along we talk about. How do they get installed in your computer or device, who are the people making it, and basically what is the economic benefit for them, and the third aspect is as a researcher what can I do, where do I start. So, when I started many years ago. When I started, there used to be a web page maintained by, I do not remember, some European or Russian organization, virustotal.org or com, and that they used to maintain all known viruses or malware and their solutions and their defense and attack. It is same as common weakness enumeration website. It is kind of was owned by a private company, private party. If you want to download for your research, then you have to pay to them, and we downloaded many of those, and all of them are actually real malware. You download it and you run it in your computer, you will get affected. That is why many of them we have basically downloaded in a sandbox environment. So, you basically create a kind of a virtual machine environment, very protected environment, and within that environment you execute them. And the way they spread, it could be web bound. When you are downloading something from your email, you are checking a website, or it could be any mobile devices, it could be you are connecting an USB, and as I go along talk about some of the very popular malware in terms of what kind of chaos they have created, in terms of the monetary damage they created, you will see they actually there is a social engineering aspect to it. It is not just a program and oh oops I hit that link or I downloaded that or executed that, there is a social engineering aspect to it. So, if we go by raw numbers, so this is by Bissell and Pomen Institute. So, if you look at the numbers, of course, in this classification they divided the malware category, one of the category they call as malware, then denial of service, web based attack, phishing, malicious code, stolen devices, ransomware, botnets. We will get into all of them. Anybody knows what is a phishing attack? Yes, please.
It is a targeted attack wherein the victim is made to, for example, click on a link. When it clicks the link, then a spurious website can open.
So, how a phishing attack is different from other forms of attack?
Because it is targeted.
So, targeted would be, so for example, common phishing attacks are let us say you posted something in your LinkedIn, Facebook somewhere, and people kind of know you visited one of the party, only other people everybody assumes knows their family member, and let us say then I call your dad or mom and pretend I am calling from you or as your friend, oh XYZ was in this party, fallen sick, I am taking to hospital and needs immediate surgery, this much of money. So, the reason that is phishing or targeted attack is that you as a parent, you would tend to believe, oh yeah, my son was in that party on that day, and this person has a friend of that, and that friend is calling. So, it becomes realistic, not just oh I will make you rich, and that does not work. Even bigger targeted attack would be I would pretend as you when I call your parents. to the extent I will have a mimic exact your voice, because large language model needs only few seconds of your voice sample, and each of us think we are great singers, right, great singers, actors, we are posting on the web, and that is our disaster. Our pride becomes our disaster. So, then even a few seconds of your voice sample would be enough for a large language models. I can use large language models, I will be speaking like myself, and then I will use large language model to transform my voice to your voice when I call your dad mom. So, it would be exactly your voice. If that is not enough, I will call them on their WhatsApp and I will appear exactly like you. When I open my WhatsApp and start calling your parents, they would look face to face you with your all facial expression and everything. Or I need a few seconds of video. In fact, few seconds of static image will do, large language model will convert that to video, and then when I am talking, it would be exactly you talking. And even worse, within if you have a few minutes of your video sample, large language model will be able to figure out what are your idiosyncrasies, like once in a while you scratch your right chin or left chin, or you are clicking here, any of the idiosyncrasies you have, I will be displaying that, such as dad, how are you, and if you never said that to your dad when you called, and if I try doing that, that would be red handed catch, what is going on, it does not, that is not my son. So, everything would be picture perfect. I will be able to do the phishing attack better than you, the way when you talk to your family. So, therefore, please be careful anytime you post anything. I know Dr. Karfa is going to post all of this video in this, that is not a good thing. So, that is the social engineering aspect. As I go along, you will see how social engineering also helps in spreading this. And then there is issue, if you like this video, put a like on it or forward it, that is also social engineering. Not only you are getting scammed, you are also spreading it to scam other people. And some social engineering are based on religious belief, or if you do not forward it to 20 other people, your kid will die, or some kind of nonsense, and people tend to believe that, a lot of people tend to believe that, and then that is how the social engineering lets the spread of that spam or malware. So, that is basically phishing, but all others, no matter what it is, which of you can say what is denial of service? Yes, please.
So, in denial of service, basically there are two types. First is DDoS, in which we overwhelm the system so that it does not give output. Basically, we are targeting that availability part in CIA tried.
Thank you. So, denial of service attack, depending on you are denying what. Let us say it is a website to register for a PhD program in IIT Guwahati, and you want to do denial of service attack, and then all you have to do is first you apply, make sure you apply, your application goes through, and you make sure nobody else can apply, and you keep saying fake things, and system will say, oh, you did not enter your birthday correctly, you can't be born on 1940 or some good check. You keep doing that billions of requests per second, so that admission or registration systems get overwhelmed, everybody else get to wait or timed out or system is busy or something. But the key claim is your malicious things should be able to access and try entering, other people will not be able to enter. If you are not able to enter, then other people will be. So, that is the denial of service attack. In fact, there is a social engineering aspect of it. Many years ago in Jadavpur University, computer science department, the people who got registered or actually got the enrollment is more than 500 score. Normally top 100 used to get admitted, and it turned out there was a student from South Point High School whose score was really low, I do not remember, 300, 400, and that person was determined to get it. So, that person and their family member went and distributed leaflets saying how many computers in the computer science department have and how many have viruses, not on disk is needed to clear that, and it is not a department worth going for, it is a useless exercise. So, first 300, 400 people did not even enroll in that year. Now, of course, you may think that social engineering will fail, all the professors would be angry at that student or something will happen, nothing happened, people forget. So, that is the social engineering aspect of it. You can do cheat and fraud, yet, and similar social engineering happened in USA. So, two big film stars basically wanted their kid to get admitted in a top school. So, either you have to be IQ or you have to have money. These people did not have IQ, of course, they are film stars, how much IQ can they have? And then, but what they had lot of money and they hire what in the US they call it whatever academic counselors they hired, and depending on the amount of money you pay, they will put you in that kind of school. So, this particular student got admitted to UCLA and under the sports quota, and the worst part was this student by mistake boasted about it in the Facebook. That is the disaster, that I never forget about this whatever XYZ game the counselor put that person in. She never played, not only that game, she does not know what that game is, she never played any game in her life. But that counselor faked all the documents, all the forgery. What is the end result? Parents went to jail for few days, but students' admission did not get cancelled. The student still graduated from UCLA. I tracked that Jadavpur student, I tracked that UCLA student, both graduated. So, I think this is a good social engineering. If I need to go to jail for my kid to get a degree from MIT, I would do that. Everybody else will forget. I am pretty sure nobody else knows this story except me. So, if you want your kid to be admitted in MIT, Stanford, IIT Chennai, Mumbai, just figure out one of the way and just be ready to go to jail or bribe few more people and you will be fine. If the social engineering was not supportive, many of those malware will not survive. What is the another social engineering aspect of it? This cryptocurrency. Ransomware will not survive if there is no mechanism of hiding that payment. If somebody transacts money from your bank account, let us say State Bank of India takes to Axis Bank within India, the Indian government or the agency would be able to find it, detect it, catch the person, put it in jail. What if it goes to a bank in Nigeria? You can't do anything. What if it goes to a cryptocurrency? Nobody knows where it went. But cryptocurrency is not going to go away because lot of rich people invested in it. So, it is a conflict of interest, including all these ministers, big presidents in all these countries. They and their family member invested huge amount of money. They have no vested interest in getting rid of cryptocurrency. Therefore, malware is going to flourish. So, when we complain about malware being bad, we need to ask ourselves as a society, we are creating that social engineering for it to happen. We are creating a society of bribing. We are creating a society where my kid is not intelligent enough, instead of saying, okay, you deserve to be begging on the street, we do not buy them a plate and put them begging on the street, we put them in private engineering colleges. So, if we are paying through the system, then malware will happen, malware will flourish. If everybody stop giving bribes, then bribing system will go away. Everybody wants to take shortcut, that is why it is an attacker's paradise. So, that we basically talked about. Let us zoom into each of them. So, in the malware, if you look at it, what it does, its objective is different. And again, this is a summary of worldwide. So, business average per company, how much they paid. So, business disruption, information loss, revenue loss, equipment damage and all that stuff. So, on an average 70% of the companies were affected by some form of malware where they have to make some payment in the vicinity of million. Now, of course, people do not report, because if I report my company has malware attack, that basically says I have lousy employees who cannot do information management, or I have lousy employees who can get into this honey trap and all that stuff. I do not want to reveal that information. In fact, there is a prestigious university in India where they hired a high paid professor, higher salary than me in India, which turned out to be a complete fraud. There was a person with that name resume, went to Himalayas and became a saint or got killed, nobody knows. This person took the identity of such a big individual, like somebody took identity of me and getting high paid job in one of the private engineering colleges, and it turned out that person was never penalized. And the reason was this big university with getting all these money from all these sponsors have no vested interest in revealing the fact they made such a blunder. They never pursued it in a court or never posted it to police. So, this person did this audacity, yet got scot free. And how did it happen? Our department chair Sartaj Sahni visited that university, and this director of that institute say, hey, I would introduce you to such a guy, big guy XYZ, and we hired and this and that. My professor's antenna went on, the department chair, and when the department chair met, of course you realize who the hell are you, and then rest of the story is basically it's hush money payment. Nobody, they made a deal, nobody will say anything about it in the public. And this is very interesting phenomena, and this continues. Let us zoom into one of those kind of thing, and before I go there, I kind of tried to look at all these 3000, 4000 known malware we have today. I tried to put it in different categories. Some of them are infectious, like think of viruses, worm. So, if anybody touches it, they just spread, that is the infectious. Some of them has the property of concealment. Again, remember, I categorize them, but some of them may fall into two categories, although I did not put them. So, concealment, basically they will hide. The power of this one is not, their objective is I want to spread and I want to have lot of kids, but rather I want to just go somewhere, hide, so that nobody else can find me. So, there are Trojan horses, logic bomb, rootkits. I will take example and zoom into them. And then some of the malware, the primary objective is to steal something, some information, whether the spyware, keylogger, screen scraper, and then some has objective of making money. So, classical is ransomware. And in fact, some of the dialers, I do not know how phone system works here in US, if you have a postpaid, and then there are certain numbers, if you call, you have to pay like for example $1 per minute. So, mostly those are kind of illegal facility with illegal calls, but basically somebody will call you and you will think, oh, where the call came from, you call and they will just keep chatting nonsense. Basically they will be killing your time, but eventually your phone company will bill you. You call that number, and that number is a paid, not a toll free number. That number you have to pay for every minute you talk, irrespective of you have unlimited call facility, does not matter. For those set of numbers you have to pay. So, similar, those are for profit. Then malware as a platform for other attacks. So, botnet, I will talk about backdoor, trapdoor. So, they are basically some malware they installed there and they are sitting there. That would be a launching pad for other malware. Let us say I am a fraud and you are a fraud. I basically said I already made the fraud scheme and you can use me, but you have to give this % commission. I already have trapdoor there. I will let you use it, but then you have to, whatever money you make, you have to give this much of cut. So, then that is those kind of malware. So, let us start with the one of the simplest one, Gaffit, also known as Bash Lite. So, basically these are used for targeting Linux systems. So, before I go any further, so even 10-15 years ago, people used to feel there is something wrong about Windows operating system and Bill Gates, because all attacks, everything is on Windows operating system, and nobody is talking about Linux or Mac. And I knew even then, I even talked about it in extensively, because there is no benefit for the malware developer to make lot of money, because if you have only small fraction of community using Linux, it is not worth it to waste my time and attack those stuff. So, now the Linux is such a broad user, from Android handheld devices to computers, or Mac also so much use. Now, you have attack for everything, and this is one of the first on the Linux system, that is why I put it in there. So, they basically infiltrate IoT devices, IoT as in, for example, your router in your house, your automated door system, the thermostat, the thermostat or the refrigerator, smart refrigerator and all that stuff, and then they try to do distributed denial of service attack. So, basically they try to get a full foothold using some technology called cell shock and to the vulnerable devices, and they remotely execute command to launch this one. So, the key idea still remains the same, that they have a central kind of server, and then they are trying to check. Think about it, my housing community has 200 houses, right, and some of them the doors will not be closed. So, let us say I am one of the person coming and knocking at the door. While I am knocking at the door, I may try rotating the knob. If I keep doing in every houses, and whichever house I get in, I can just get in and start putting my foothold. Similar analogy, but slightly different. In a house you have lot of IoT devices, it will try reaching and hacking any of them, whichever you get access you get in, and then try to see how do I get foothold on more of them, and then you try kind of keep sending fake messages to create the denial of service attack. PN scan is another one in Linux Trojan. So, basically ARM, which is the de facto processor for embedded devices, they have majority market share. MIPS, which is the earlier version of we talked about the vector MIPS. So, this is the MIPS. PowerPC, this is the architecture developed jointly by Freescale, IBM, and so IBM kind of owns it. So, for those architecture this infection work, it is basically a software Trojan, which I will zoom in, but the mode of operand for this software Trojan is basically try the brute force to get the password. Let us say if you have access to my laptop, you keep trying different password, unless there is a mechanism that after the third try it will kind of lock for 16 minutes, it will keep allowing. Of course, if my password is long and all that character, the amount of try you have to do too much, but many times people do not do that. Many times it is 1 2 3 4 5, or it is just your birthday, my birthday, the day you first kissed, or whatever it is, which is much easier to guess. I have to, if I do little bit of research on you, and then basically the space becomes significantly smaller. And once you are able to get a foothold, then that is basically what it is. And most of the attack actually not sophisticated. Let us say if I want to attack one of the investigative agency in India, then all I have to do just compromise one of the person, just being friendly, just walking around and seeing the password, few characters of it while walking, because most people have no ethical values, take it from me. If they are standing, you will be believing when you are typing password, they are supposed to turn their head, they do not, they do not. If they find a purse on the street, many people will not take it to the police station, they will just put it in their pocket. How honest you are, you can figure out. Once you find a purse or a diamond on the street, then you will figure out how honest you are. So, given the fact, then if I can compromise just one person, that is pretty much all I need. In the whole, I can take down the whole system. It's that's so basically once I get that person's password, I am a sysadmin in that company, whether it's a CIA or FBI or whatever it is. Then Mirai is another sophisticated one, where it's basically it's collectively lot of the components placed together to mount the basically attack, and this is kind of works if you never change the factory settings of your IoT devices. This Mirai attack actually works very well. Now I am to talk about software Trojan. The basic idea is they want to hide. How many of you know this story? What is the name of the lady in that story? Yes.
I don't know the overall view, but I do know there's a story that there's a Roman emperor. So the soldiers were inside the horse. And
That's the boring part. That's the last page. How many of you know the first page of the story? First of all, this is a mythical story. It's not real, but this is important for our today's discussion. How many of you know the central figure of that story? Not the horse. Helen. Yeah, so apparently she is the most beautiful woman in the world, and she does not exist, but we can still fall in love, right? It's not unethical, right? It's okay. If somebody does not exist, you want to fall in love, it's all right. So basically the people from Troy, also known as Trojans, they captured Helen from Sparta, and Sparta of course will not give it up, their own princess or queen, I always forget, anyway she does not exist. So they came to fight, and they figured out the fortress boundary they could not penetrate. So they basically left everything or whatever, including a horse, they gone. When everything is come down, the people from Troy, also known as Trojans, they came out and they saw this horse, and all the so called brilliant people, dumb people, oh this is a consolation prize, they wanted to say sorry, they left it and they pulled it inside their fort, and there were soldiers inside it. In the middle of the night, these soldiers came out, basically killed everybody. I do not know what happened to Helen, last page does not say it. But the key idea here is that you would be your own destroyer. It is like you carrying a money to give your own killer. That is a plot from a movie. So, basically the people from Troy or Trojans are pulling this horse from the enemy and putting in their fortified castle just to be killed by the enemy. That is the idea of Troy. So, the key idea is the enemy soldiers were hidden secretly inside at the stomach of the horse. That is the key idea. So, today I am going to talk about software Trojan, but few days later I am going to talk about hardware Trojan, but that is the how efficiently can I hide, right. So, anytime you go to a hotel room, they give you a free upgrade, do not take it. Anytime you get to a hotel room and the price looks too good to be true, do not take it, because most likely they have camera and they are selling you in the market. Rest I do not want to say what they are selling. So, and so basically in the Trojan horse, in the software, they basically will hide. It is a piece of software, they will do nothing unless whatever the attacker designed it for, whenever they want to activate, that is when they will activate and they will act. Now, when you are doing the traditional software testing, you should not be able to detect it. That is the key idea. You have millions of lines of code, 5, 10, 20, 100 lines of code, some function hidden there. If you run your normal regression test suite, it should not show anything funny at the output, nothing should happen. That is the idea of hiding. When I talk about hardware Trojan, I will get more into detail how can you hide in a broad daylight. So, basically that is it expects overt and expected. So, every time it will behave like normal, only when it is needed, then it is going to be attacking, and such kind of people are all around us. They will pretend as a friend as long as you are helping them in their homework and all that stuff, and then they will backstab you when needed, absolutely when it is needed. And this is the kind of example attacker, the kind of functions they do. Then trapdoor or backdoor. So, basically it is a secret entry into a system. So, let us say I am a designer in the company, I am a disgruntled employee, I am unhappy, my promotion did not happen or something, I put a backdoor, right, or somebody paid me to put a backdoor in the system, so that when that system is in use, people can make use of it. Of course, not the good people, bad people can make use it, and it could be also can be included in the compiler. The compiler codes itself, GCC, let us say I have somehow access to GCC, I am one of the developer people who can go and modify it, then that GCC itself will be there. It won't be able to detect. Only time when a person's X from a specific country Y compiles a program for a nuclear reactor, I will show an example of that. Only then the code will have something malicious embedded in the compiled code. Every other time it is going to do a perfect compilation, because that is not the intention of that backdoor. Logic bomb, as the name suggests, it is a similar functionality, but it would explode only absolutely when needed, and any information I am sharing here, these are public, feel free to share, it is all right. So, and here is the example. So, it is 1918 on, not too long ago, it is a Trans-Siberian pipeline incident. So, a KGB operative was supposed to steal some information, and US CIA got that information, and then there is a farewell dossier, and the company basically inserted a logic bomb. So, basically you wanted to come to my house and steal, I basically stolen it from you, and the thing was, it was a big disaster, so much of fire, whole pipeline getting burst. It was probably the first most explosive thing other than nuclear reactor that can be seen from space. So, it basically backfired. You know what KGB is, right? So, it backfired, KGB wanted to do something, it backfired on the KGB. Spyware, as the name suggests, is basically used for spying. It anytime you are typing a keyboard, and most of you have spyware in your system, most of you. If you are visiting any website which you are not proud to tell your friends or your parents, or you are not proud to show me right now, then most likely you have that software installed. And early days you have to have permission to install. These days all these high tech web browsing plugin and user friendly thing, it basically enabled malware to be installed even if you do not click the link. If you just open the email, that is enough permission for me to get installed in your system. I sent you an email, you open that email, that is big enough. Of course, it would be easier for me to get a deep foothold if you can click the link button or download an attachment and play it. Oh, there is a nice video, it is worth watching and modifying, or some cool stuff I say based on your usage profile, and then you use it and that is it. So, bottom line, how do you save yourself from all of this? Just focus on studies, focus on doing PhD, do not look left, do not look right, then you will be fine. If you do anything else, you are knowingly doing it. Do not tell me later I did not know it, I told you. Scareware, most of the, anytime an email says you have to respond immediately, there is a sense of urgency, or like if you do not do this, something will happen, then this story will happen. When my sister died, we were looking at that room, she was 13, and there was a piece of paper. There was about one religious goddess, and somebody wrote that postcard, 15 paisa postcard, and it was supposed to be sent to 15 or 20 people to scam other people. My mom, till she died, she believed because my sister did not send this postcard to 20 people, that is why she passed away. And that information propagated to everybody, and that is basically the social engineering. I understand sister passing away is an unfortunate event, but I am pretty sure it has nothing to do with not spamming rest of the world, but the scareware is that technique. If you do not forward, somebody will die, something will happen, or you have to act immediately. Tax, Indian government revenue services, or somebody has a arrest warrant, we can stop all of that if you pay this much by this day through this avenue. All of them are scareware technique. In fact, the most one people fall for, suddenly you are visiting some weird website you are not supposed to visit, or I do not know whether you are. So, then it pops up, oh, ransomware got installed and you have to do this. That is actually fake, no ransomware got installed. You just shut down your system or something, it goes away. It is basically a fake scareware so that you kind of pay money. So, stuff like that will show up, and it is not important what it says. This one I talked about, this is my most favorite one, because many of these vulnerabilities we as researchers know, but this one was classic. This is a major vulnerability, the enemies of United States made use of it, then National Security Agency basically kind of fallen in their own trap, and it got revealed that they actually knew about it. They are using it to spy on US citizens, or at least the US citizen who believe have connection to North Korea, calling somebody in Iran or Russia, what are they talking about? So, that is vulnerability, that is the ransomware, and this is kind of the how skin shows up, that we locked all of your files, all of your directories, and if you do not pay this much $300 by that day through this Bitcoin, then that is pretty much, you will not be able to access any of those. Now, two word of caution, many times this screen is fake, they did not actually do anything, and even if you pay, there is no guarantee you will be able to recover all of your files, that is the fact, take it from me. Even if you pay, you will not be able to recover. Instead, just forget about those things, that is gone, but you and I can do that. Most institutes, companies, hospitals, they can't. When I show you those horror stories, you will see the real life world stories, they actually pay. Sometimes it is not $300, it is in the order of millions, 5, 10, 20, 100, depending on how big. Recent attack was on Los Angeles school district, but they basically attack those, and attacking is very simple. Actually, attacker's life is so easy. You can be extremely rich in no time, and most of the time they actually get paid, most of the time, and nothing happens to them. They have big houses in Bahamas, in Spain and France and Laguna Beach, they have all those nice expensive houses. So, the key idea is of ransomware is basically they do couple of things. So, first of all, through some mechanism you kind of, so they will get a foothold in your laptop, desktop, whatever you are using, they get a foothold of there, they get installed. You clicked on an email, you did something, enter your information, this credit card is too good to be believed, all that stuff. In fact, there are many ATM machine in many countries I have visited, those are all fake ATM machines. You insert your card, they will never let you take it out. You punch the password, they will scan it, and that's pretty much you are done, unless you within few seconds you take this out and or within a day you just block that card, they have everything. Then there are cameras, when you are typing these numbers, they are basically getting your the password you are typing, and about your card you walk through, I walk through with a scanner, I get everything about your card. So, everything I covered from ATM card to your all this stuff, it is all covered, right. So, you can scan and you can get all of those. So, they get a foothold of that, and once they get a foothold, then basically in opportune moment they will block and encrypt all your file. Why am I saying all of this? Can anybody tell me why am I saying it encrypts all the files, that word I am using? Yes.
Encrypts because so that we cannot decrypt it.
So that we can decrypt, that is their advantage. For me, if I know a program sitting there and encrypted too many files, it does not seem like a normal behavior, then that is how ransomware detection works. Because for a detection to work, you have to know the behavior of a malware. For ransomware, behavior is suddenly they will be trying to get foothold of 10, 100, 1000 whatever files or directory they want to encrypt. Too many encrypt operation or functions should be happening in a very short span of time. Any question? So, ransomware, I have few words here, and then ransomware detection. So, when you do ransomware detection or any academic researcher, you are going to see a plot like that. If you do some time, specific values you are noting, in this particular case some encryption or sub function of encryption routine. For normal computation there is not going to be anything, but in other computations it is very high. So, just by looking at this graph you should be able to think, well, then ransomware detection is easy. How come every system does not come with default ransomware detection? Any of you have any answers for that? If difference is so clear cut, that we should be able to detect and stop any ransomware, why not? For two reasons. One is not just this ransomware detection, any antivirus tool you have in your system, it is based on some kind of what do I call it, some kind of equation. If value, this is a value, if value x is less than equal to 5, then do something. It is basically, we call it a signature. There is a signature for every known malware or spamware, ransomware, any of those known signature. If you let us say you have a anti firewall or antivirus like Symantec, that is the biggest company in the world, then they already have known all the things, they analyzed it, they have the signature, and anytime you install, it is a list of millions of signature. Whenever that antivirus software runs, it is basically anything, any program you start, any process starts in your system, it checks for one of those signature. If it matches, it will stop it, block it, put it in quarantine, move all the data and all that stuff and inform you. The problem with that is, the developer of ransomware is also aware of that you are checking x less than equal to 5, whatever the, it could be more complicated, x less than equal to 5 and something or something, it is a big complicated equation. They were aware of it. They will try to basically pretend x is not less than equal to 5, right. So, if the assumption is a thief always wears a jeans, so then I am not going to wear a jeans. When I want to rob a bank, I will wear some dhoti, kurta, whatever makes me look like I am a gentleman, that is what I will wear. If x less than equal to 5 such a problem, okay, I will make sure x is not less than equal to 5. So, for example, percentage of cache misses or number of branch misprediction, if that is a problem, okay, I will not do that, then that solves the problem. So, that is basically one issue. Second issue is I am illustrating here, let me try to erase this. Yes, please.
So does that mean it activates after it has been scanned, or?
No, that only means whatever feature you are looking for, the feature or the equation. I used word x, it could be number of instruction less than 500 or branch misprediction more than 20%, whatever it is. Me as a ransomware developer will add some fake branches in my program, and I will make sure branch misprediction is greater than, lower than, whatever you are checking. I will just make sure whatever you are checking, I will just misguide that. So that but the thing is, the way it works is a cat and mouse game. Now Symantec get to know about it, there is another ransomware attack and they have a modified signature. That is when they say please update the antivirus. When they say update or patch, it is nothing but whatever the signature file you have, it will add to that signature file or it will modify some of the signature. If a new malware comes into the picture, they get to analyze it, another signature would be added to the system. That is what it is. But the second problem that I was talking about, basically when the malware detection should detect, ransomware detection should detect it. If it detects too early, just ransomware started, then the problem is, because ransomware does this registration, get permission, load algorithm, then it start doing encryption. If it, so if it does too early, then it is because you have limited information and lot of false positive. It may be normal program, you might be just encrypting your own file, maybe disk backup, whatever it is, you are encrypting on your own and it could be misconstrued as ransomware. If you do little late, let me see little bit more time, by that time system already encrypted all of them, it is too late. Even if you detected, oh I found a ransomware, so what, they already encrypted your files. So, because different types of malware have different characteristics, even if you know how to detect it, detection becomes a problem. So, it is not that people are not aware of it, people are aware of it, but it becomes a problem. Let us talk about virus. So, as the name virus says, it is basically spreads, right. So, there are basically self replicating code and then operates when infected, if spread condition then for target file, if not infected alter the virus. So, it is basically the program that kind of self propagates and makes copies. In one router it got access, another router is connected, it make a copy and transfer there, because once you are in a trusted zone or inside my house, let us say a lot of things, but the assumption is all the routers and thermostat, TV, door, security automation, everybody talks to each other, they are all trustworthy. If you infected one of them, then you have the liberty to infect everybody else, because now you are trusted within the system. Worm, basically self-replicating malware that does not require a host program, it propagates fully working itself to other machines. So, basically probing, exploitation, replication, payload, whatever it wants to do. Then Morris worm is one of the most popular, actually the first version of the worm, and the source code is also available. Zombie and botnet. So, these are actually backdoor, these are actually backdoor. So, you have some code, or think about it, you introduced a vulnerability in the system for other people to exploit it later. That botnet is a program that will sit there, it would kind of help other malware to act. Rootkit is similar, I am going to skip rootkit, and there are so many types of rootkits also. So, botnet, rootkit, all of those have the same property. They basically, so the reason botnet and rootkit are separated, rootkit as the name suggests, it has a word root, that means it is pretty much like they will be a botnet for sysadmin kind of people, they have root access, they get to install on the sysadmin space, and botnets are like normal user space, you and I. So, think about in IIT sysadmin who those people are. So, then basically in their computer how to get installed, what to do, what utilities, how to change. So, those are known as rootkits. And installed I have basically talked about, and I will show basically real world examples, so that you kind of know. I am going to skip all of them, how do they get accept. Now, I am going to talk about famous malware attack. Now, this is not a laundry list, these are my favorites, there are many more, but some of the key ideas I talked about, including social engineering, that was used in the fullest extent in each of them. So, I will start with the colonial pipeline attack, and I basically got affected by it. So, I have first hand experience. So, there is every country you need a pipeline to supply the fuel, right. How much can you carry by trucks and all that. So, there is a pipeline from all the way from Florida to all the way from New Jersey and all that stuff on the boundary. So, this is owned by a company called Colonial, and this pipeline attack basically before I talk about that pipe, first of all I want you to understand there is a pipeline through these states which basically supply the fuel. And I want you to understand that in United States, I did not get such a data for India or public data. In United States, so when you have a pipeline systems, there are known vulnerabilities. It is known to community, good people like us, it is also known to the attacker, right. So, there are that I forgot. In security domain, it is the common understanding is everybody knows everything. Security domain assumption is not I will not tell you what security algorithm I am using in my system, whether it is AES, ECC, I will talk about those cryptographic algorithms, that is whole day dedicated for that. Assumption is everybody knows everything except the key. Can you still attack it? Then if you can attack it, then my security system is not a good system. So, that is why you might be wondering why US government made it public, because vulnerability or anything about it, that information should be available to everybody. So, in the act of sabotage, somebody goes and breaks the pipeline. That was the recent pipeline breakage below the ocean, the Russian pipeline that happened, but that is not what I am talking about. Then cyber attack, this is the attack I am going to zoom in. Colonial pipeline attack actually happened in the distribution system of the cyber on the business system. There is also physical attack, you can just make explosion by putting fire in the pump, you can control and sorry, my apology, the control system was attacked in this pipeline. So, what actually happened, it is a long story, may not be readable, but the key idea is hacker basically company or group named DarkSide. There is a group called DarkSide, and they basically got access to this network, Colonial pipeline network, and then lot of data they basically stole within certain time and so on and so forth. Then they demanded 75 Bitcoin at that time, which was about 4.4 million at that point, and then that whole supply got disrupted. Basically think about it, fuel is not flowing. Now, if fuel is not flowing, there was still some fuel, whatever fuel was there, but what happened the moment I realized there is no fuel, what am I going to do next thing? I will not only fill my car, I will fill bunch of drums also in my house. That panic buying and all of that caused huge disaster. Hospitals do not have fuel, the people in the home, in US many people before they die, they actually in home they have all these services, they do not die in hospitals, they live up to 90, 95, 100, and those houses do not have fuel, and the old people either they do not have kids or they don't, the kids do not care about their parents, or parents do not want kid to be bothered about, they are pretty much all alone, they can't go and buy fuel. So, it became a total chaos in so many states in the USA, there is no fuel, and in fact the trucks which will carry fuel, that those trucks also have no fuel, and most of it caused by the price has gone up drastically, and most of it is caused by people actually panic buying. If people are like, okay, now there is a fuel shortage, let me not drive, people did not do that, and every gas station there is fighting, hustling like third world country, people are punching, shouting at each other, big line, and everybody is trying to cut in, bang, scratch, it is unbelievable. Unless you see for 1 or 2 weeks from May 6 to June 8 or almost a month, it is just unbelievable pain. So, that damage or that loss is huge, lot more than 4.4 million, that is huge. Let us talk about Stuxnet malware. So, this malware is basically, so United States has an objective for Iran to stop doing nuclear enrichment, to build nuclear power or nuclear bomb or whatever it is. They tried lot of stuff, putting what is this called economic, all that sanctions and all that stuff, deal and all that stuff, nothing worked. While none of these are working, US tried something very interesting. For that to work, so there is a malware called Stuxnet, later we figured that out, and the person who figured out is a 14-year-old kid who figured out all of that. Before all of that happened, still nobody knew about it. So, Stuxnet basically it works with the Siemens control software. I do not know whether it is written anywhere, Siemens control software. So, it basically any industrial automation systems, most industrial automation systems uses Siemens control systems, and this Stuxnet basically once it gets a full foothold on Siemens control system, it can control the whole thing. And what basically it did or wanted to do, the centrifuge, the speed it rotates, if you change the speed even little bit, then uranium enrichment time increases by another 40 years. So, that is what it pushed. So, their enrichment was, let us say in 2 to 3 years they are supposed to get bomb quality uranium material, it got pushed by another 40 to 50 years. And how did that go to such a highly protected uranium facility? The way it works, social engineering. US did a study that if you throw USB stick on the street, how many people pick it up? How many people pick it up, take it to their home? How many people pick it up, take it to their office? How many people actually insert that in their office? They had all the data. Based on that, they figured out just throwing USB sticks in Iran or vicinity of the area will work. Of course, they tried to infiltrate, that did not work, lot of US agents got killed. So, then they basically had to adopt for this social experiment. They threw all these USB sticks with Stuxnet, and one of the one of those dudes basically picked up that USB stick and put it on the system to copy file to do legitimate stuff. Stuxnet got installed, and that basically delayed the uranium enrichment. That is why still US, Iran negotiate. One president comes in and says, I want to make a deal with you, do not do the enrichment, allow international visitors to see that you are not doing it. Then Trump comes in and says, I do not give a shit, I am not going to deal with you. So, all that pros and cons goes on, but that is the Stuxnet. The interesting part is one 14-year-old kid actually figured it out, and they basically broken it that this code, what is it trying to do, Siemens control, who cares, who created it, and basically then it worked. Then the third example, which is also my favorite example, and in the security community anytime I teach, this is the first thing I teach. When you want to mount an attack, if you are an attacker, as a researcher we have to wear two caps, one is blue cap as a defender, one is red cap as a attacker. So, when you are an attacker, your objective should be other person should have no clue. So, most of the examples in this world I have shown, even in the if you go and look at the common weaknesses, common vulnerabilities database, most of the attacks are based on 5 or 6 well known weaknesses. But this is an example I want to show you where you talk about a weakness nobody even knew about, that did not even exist. So, United States, every country do it. I always take example of United States because I am sure what I am saying, and it's perfectly fine. Other country I know examples, I am not, that is why Israel pager attack I did not talk about, I know the intricate details of it. So, there is a Cold War time 1960s, 62, 64. So, US wanted to know everything about Russia at that time. Now, of course, Russia is not going to give you that information. Even in Cold War time, there was a consulate, Russian consulate in Washington DC. US is not able to infiltrate to that consulate. They tried all kind of techniques, it did not work. So, then US basically one day they got a news, they are buying a copier machine, and that is it. Xerox is a US based company, and it is a Xerox copier 914. This is an exact picture, not at that consulate, that 914 model I found it, and that is basically a copier similar to this bought. And what happened, even the moment US got that news, they had very short time, like few months or a year, they hired somebody called Ray Zuputh, and this person's job was, can you in the actual design of this, can you fit a camera there? So, you have to fit a camera, so that anything they photocopy you should be able to take picture, and it took them lot of time to perfect it, and that is the copier they sent to the Russian consulate. And the idea of this is it will keep on taking images until the buffer become full. When buffer become full, the software will basically say I am not working, there is a problem in the system. Repairman gets called and this guy is the repairman. Ray would go in, download, take the buffer, reset the system, system starts working, comes out. So, basically two things US had to do, three things: knowing that Russian embassy is going to install a copier. Second thing is, those days there were de facto only one company, Xerox. It is not that they did not have a choice. These days they might have gone for some other companies, but then second thing they had to do, they had to perfect that photocopy, buffering and all that mechanism. And third thing they had to do is that the repairman has to be a US spy. So, that basically all three worked, and that is basically the story. And antivirus I briefly talk about. So, I mostly talked about the attack, but antivirus is actually a very useful industry. There are many companies, and so the Symantec, and there are many firewall, many of those stuff, but as I summarized, it relies on the premise that I know the characteristics of the malware, therefore, I know the signature of it. Therefore, any program executing in my system, within few milliseconds I will be able to figure out whether it's any of the known signature matches with the program, then I will block it, stop it, quarantine it, move it to a directory where it can't do any more damages, and that kind of stuff. And in the that is pretty much what brings me to the conclusion. So, malware is a serious threat to computing systems, and you should not view it as a simple piece of software. It comes with a huge amount of social engineering. We need to be greedy, otherwise we will not install it, right. So, it plays on human emotion, society emotion, and many of the example malware I have shown, at least the popular one, that is a state level attack. A country wants to invest all of their money to attack another country. And by the way, in the previous example I did not give you data because that is not public. This Xerox machine or that attack US applied on how many embassies of their enemy country, including their friend country. So, because I am getting recorded, I did not want to give you that information, you will not find that information. And then there are a lot of software based solutions, which is basically it matches some signature, and I talked about that can be bypassed by program behaving or changing its behavior. If I know what signature you are checking for me, then I will change my signature, so that you can't detect me. Then there are some hardware based solution, and in the next lecture I will talk about how we can use explainable AI to kind of detect some of these malwares, not all of them. Thank you.